Hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about browsers. And browsers may seem like a mundane topic, but the reason I like to discuss it is because there are many out there that are good, they are well designed, and frankly because it seems to me, and I am baffled by this, that so many people that I know, my students, my peers, my colleagues, my family, my friends, random people that I don't even know, they all seem to just default to Google's Chrome browser. In fact, they default to Google services altogether. They use Gmail and they use Google Drive and they use Chrome browser. And when I tell them, for example, that there are other browsers out there, browsers that are better, they completely short circuit. They're so befuddled by that statement that they have to go outside and ponder their very existence. It's like you've bathed them in some kind of holy light that challenges everything they've been brought up to know and believe. But the fact is, there are other browsers out there, better browsers. Chrome is not a good browser. It's terrible with resources. Its functionality is limited. If you want to build onto it, you have to use plugins and extensions. The browsers I'm going to talk about today have a lot of really wonderful features built in that I think make them the better browsers. Now, it's completely up to you, of course. Use whatever you want. But I just want to make you aware that there are other options out there. All of the browsers that we're going to be talking about today are built on the Chromium codebase and they use the Blink rendering engine. Now, the Chromium, there's actually a browser called Chromium, but what Chromium does is it allows you to build a browser. And what the Blink engine does is it allows the browser to then render the code that it sees into what you see as a web page. Now, I believe the Firefox browser uses Gecko. We aren't going to be talking about Firefox today, but I believe it actually uses a Gecko engine. I think it does. But the browsers that we're covering today all use Chromium, the Chromium codebase, and they use the Blink rendering engine. And surprise, surprise, those are both Google things. The Chromium codebase is really a Google thing. The Blink rendering engine is also, but it's less of a Google thing than Chrome or Chromium. But all of these, I mean, everybody, it's not just people that fall before the Google altar. It's also companies, and we can see that here in the fact that they all use Chromium and Blink. I think it's okay that they do that, though. I mean, we're talking about open source things here, and lots of companies contribute to them, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. But the browsers we'll be talking about, Edge, Brave, Opera, and Vivaldi, all of them use the Chromium engine to create the browser and then just put their own code on top of that to enhance its functionality. So the fact that they use Chromium and Blink is fine. So the first browser that I want to show you is Edge. Now, you may think, well, everybody knows Edge. Everybody knows the crappy Edge browser. Why use it? And I find it incredibly remarkable that people badmouth the Edge browser. And Microsoft's browser projects have always had a bad reputation. And to be perfectly honest, that's justifiable. The first versions of the Edge browser were not very good. And then before that, of course, it was Internet Explorer, which was notoriously terrible. So it's really a reputation that Microsoft is trying to get past with its browser. And now that they've got a Chromium-based and Blink-based Edge browser, I think that it's a fine browser. And I'm especially moved by the people who will criticize and badmouth the Edge browser and then go back to using Chrome. I mean, come on. So this will be the first one we talk about, and then we will move on to Brave, to Opera, and to Vivaldi. So really what I'm going to be talking about are just some of the features and functionality that are built in. This is not some kind of deep dive. We're not talking about the technical underpinnings of the browser or how it works. We're talking about what makes it a good browser, what makes it a viable choice. And that's true for all the browsers we're going to be talking about. So one of the things that I like about Edge is the idea of collections. So you can see this button here, and it says collections, this button right here. And if we click that, it says Start New Collection. So if we look here, I've got Microsoft's site, I have Apple's site, I have Oracle, MySQL, and let's say we want to join these together in a sort of, like a tech homepage collection as a group. So I'll just say Start New Collection, and then I will call this Tech Sites, like that, and then add current page. And then we go to the next one, add current page. Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to add groups of pages. That's a functionality that I would like to see added. And now we have add current page. So if we go back, now we've got this new collection of text sites. And if we click that, we can go to any of them. If we click here, we can even open all of them, and they open in their own browser, as you can see. I think that's a pretty nifty feature right there. Those are collections. The other interesting thing about it is it has this weird, like if you do a lot of buying online, it has a feature where it will tell you if there are coupons available or if you have the best price. Now, usually the coupon one, if we come over here, well, let's see. Let's go here to Bones Coffee. If you've never had Bones Coffee, you are missing out. So see right here up in the URL bar, it says this site has coupons. And if we click on that, oh, this is a Retail Me Not coupon. Those work sometimes, not always, so that's not such a good example. I do want to say Salty Siren is their best coffee. But let's go over here to Newegg. And we will refresh that. And here you can see it says this site has coupons. And if we click on that, there's actually a Newegg coupon here. What does it say? Polk Audio TL1600 5.1 Compact Surround Sound Home Theater. So you can actually just copy the code, and then when it asks you for your code on checkout, it's already there. Now, oh, I don't know what happened there. I just clicked on Sweetwater and it popped me off to a different window. Well, let's open it up here anyway. So here, this is Sweetwater. This is a music site, and let's go to microphones, and let's go down to ribbon microphones. Those are always nice and expensive. And if you're looking for something that is expensive, let's come, oh, here's some, oh, a pair of Royer ribbon microphones. Royer's a good brand. So we'll take a look here. And if we look up here, it pops out this thing that says you have the best price. And if we click on that, it will show where you can find it other places for a different price. This actually says $10.48. I think that's the same price, but it's still telling, yeah, it is. But it's still telling you that you have the best price here. So it can do price comparisons right in the URL bar, and it can tell you if there are coupons available right up there in the URL bar as well. So we'll close this. Oh, here we are at Newegg again. One other interesting thing I wanted to show you is that if you click in the URL bar, this thing pops up and it says create QR code for this page. If you click on that, it will create a QR code that you can download and then use to direct people to whatever the page is. All pages offer this, and it will create the QR code for it right in the URL bar. I think that's a nifty feature. Something else I want to mention, if we come all the way over here, let's click off that. All the way over here, you can see that it has something called Edge Kids Mode. And I'm not going to switch over to that because then you have to switch out of your account and it'll close your browser and do all of that. But they have this thing called Kids Mode where it's like a curated internet for kids. And I think that's a pretty nice thing. I think that's a nice feature to have. I think it's a nice, usable thing, especially if you have kids and you want to give them some internet experience and you want them to be able to browse around, but without having to stand over their shoulder all the time. I mean, Microsoft search engine Bing, you can get some really questionable results with that. I think it's a fine search engine, and it's the one I use, but like if you're doing an image search, even for something benign, the results you get, frankly, can be a little weird. So it's a kids mode, it's a kids tailored browsing mode that you can switch to, and I like that. That's a nice feature, and it's something I wish more browsers had. Another thing that I'll mention while we're on the kids mode page, as we're scrolling up and down, is that it offers something that a lot of other browsers offer, and that's up here in the upper right. It's web capture. But I like Edge's version of this, and I think there's maybe one other browser that does something similar. But normally when you do web capture, it allows you to select a part of the screen and you can capture that, or it allows you to select a screenshot, like you can capture the whole screen. But what Edge's web capture does is something that I find incredibly useful and that I wish more browsers did, but you can do a full page capture. Now normally, again, in other browsers, this means you're just capturing the visible part of the screen. But in Edge, when you do a full page capture, it actually captures the entire page from header to footer, top to bottom. And I love that. I think that's incredibly functional, incredibly useful, incredibly practical. And again, I wish more browsers did that. Their web capture will do a lot. So I really appreciate that. Another thing that I thought I would mention here is if we go over to this page, the History of Computers page, I wanted to show you up here, they have the immersive reader. Now, a lot of browsers offer reader mode, and I'm not saying that that is necessarily unique to Edge. But I like it because it offers some additional features. It offers some additional tools. I'm not actually sure if you'll be able to hear this. You'll have to pick it up through the microphone, so hopefully it works. But let's say that we want to have it read to us. This is an accessibility issue. And you can highlight a part of the text and have it do that, but we'll just have it read the whole thing. And we do that by clicking on the Read Aloud button here.
History of Computers with Timeline, 2020 update.
Whoops. Hold on.
To know the history of computers in order to have a good
I had it switched all the way up to fast because I was
because
I was experimenting with it earlier. Let's just try that again. I don't know why you'd want one of the chipmunks reading it to you, but you can do that, I guess.
History of Computers with Timeline, 2020 update. It's important to know the history of computers in order to have a good understanding of the field.
So you can hear it reading aloud. I like that. That's a nice feature to have. It's a good accessibility feature to have, and I like some of the options that they provide with it. I want to show you a couple of other things. Here we've got line focus, and I have it set to 5 lines, but it will actually highlight a certain number of lines at a time to help you focus on a particular aspect of the page. Now this is important because any of you who have had to read academic papers, read textbooks, read anything like that, will know that it can be hard to do that. And you can be distracted while you're reading. You can actually be scanning the words on the page but thinking about something else. And this can help you focus on just what it is you're trying to read, and as you scroll, it automatically highlights the lines as you're reading them. I think that's a great thing. Here's this thing, Picture Dictionary. When your cursor changes to a star, select the word to see a picture. I don't know really that this is all that useful, but it just pops up sometimes these unusual like clip art images. I don't think that's all useful, but it's something that it does. Here we have grammar tools, and I love this, especially if you're trying to learn the language, or you're not familiar with how grammar works, or you're not familiar with parts of speech. This can really help you with that. So you can highlight what is a noun, what is a verb, what's an adjective, what's an adverb, and you can do it with color codes that you set yourself. So here, for example, we'll highlight nouns, and you can see that now all the nouns have been highlighted in purple. We can highlight all the verbs, this time in red. You can choose the color again, and it will even break up words into syllables if you want help with how they are pronounced. So I love this. For people, again, for people who are learning the language or struggle with parts of speech, this is a really useful thing to have. This immersive reader function that it has is just an incredibly useful and viable thing. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when we are talking about Edge is this page here. Now, up in the URL bar, you can see I've typed in edge://flags, and that will take us to this page. This is a really fascinating thing that Edge does, and there are lots of things that you can tweak, lots of features that you can manipulate here. I very strongly advise caution when you do this. You can really screw up the way web pages work or the way the browser itself works. So you want to be careful when you are doing that. If we want to find the specific feature that we're going to be talking about here, that's forcing dark mode, then we can type / and pound enable force dark. This won't actually do anything except highlight the force dark mode for web contents feature in these experiments here. And then we can say enabled. Now this says it will take effect after we restart Microsoft Edge, so let's restart it and see what happens. Before we do that though, look at Amazon's web page. right? Ready? Restart. Okay, here we are. And look at Amazon's page. Here's Bones Coffee Company. Remember that? Here's computer parts from Newegg. All of them have been forced into dark mode. So I love this. Everybody loves dark mode. Those of you who are coders, you know the very first thing you do with an IDE is switch it to dark mode, and this will force dark mode on all web pages. You do have to be careful though, because it can interfere very rarely with the actual functionality of the site, but it can also, this is still not common, but it's more common, it can interfere with the readability of a site. So if they have dark elements on the screen, they can be harder to see. But this is something else that Edge does, that Edge allows for. And with all the other things that we've talked about, with collections, coupons, price comparisons, kid mode, web capture, the immersive reader, the QR codes that it has, I think that this makes Edge a very viable browser. It's fast, it's memory efficient, generally. It's based on the same rendering engine and the same code base as many of the other browsers. I think that Edge is a good browser, it's a strong browser, and I think that it should be considered as an option. Now that we have Edge out of the way, let's move on to Brave. Here we have the Brave browser. Now the Brave is a Brave is a privacy-focused browser that has a very curious type of business model. And the way it works is that it strips ads. It's got a built-in ad blocker. It strips ads out of pages so that you don't see them. And then what it does is it replaces those ads with its own. Now, I want to be clear here. That makes it sound like if there's an ad for some generic MMO or game or something on the side of the page, it doesn't remove that and then replace it with another, square ad on the side of the page. The ad, let's get rid of this. Oh, Brave Search is coming soon. Very interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on that. What it does with the ad is it pops up, it's like an alert almost. You know the alerts that Windows will pop up just telling you that you've been disconnected from the network or you've got an appointment coming up or something like that? It's that. It shows you one of those. It doesn't replace in place the ads that it takes out of web pages. It just shows you this alert, and it doesn't show you that many. You can actually set how many per hour you want to see with a maximum of 5, I believe. And when it shows you this ad, if you click on that ad, you'll earn something. You'll earn like a credit called a BAT, a basic attention token. And it's like a cryptocurrency almost. And as you acquire these, you can then use them to tip, just like you would tip a server at a restaurant. You could use those tokens to tip a website that has been set up to accept that kind of donation. And if you look up here, it says Brave Rewards. Now, I've just set up Brave for the purposes of this demonstration, so I don't have any of these tokens available. But you'll see here that it says send a tip. And so you can actually send some money, for lack of a better term. You can send some money that you have earned via looking at these Brave ads, and you have to actually look at them. You have to click on them and see what the ad is about. But if you do that and you earn these tokens, then you can send a tip. You can send some money, and you can help the website survive. And lots of websites have been set up to accept these tokens from Brave. Not all of them, but more than you would think. And the most well-known, I would assume, that has been set up to accept these tokens is Wikipedia. And so if you wanted to send some money to Wikipedia, I don't know about you, but I get emails every once in a while from Wikipedia asking me to donate to them. Well, here, this is a way that you could do that. This is a way that you could send them money and support their site. So that's a very unique business model that they have. That's their way of empowering you to support the sites that you like or that you visit often. So this is also a Chromium and Blink-based browser, and that's really the only thing that I wanted to say about this site, about this browser, is that it has a unique business model that allows you to earn tokens, earn cryptocurrency via viewing their pre-selected ads. And Brave claims that the ads are based on your browsing history and your browsing experience, but it is a privacy-based browser. So it's not storing a whole lot of information about you. At least they claim they're not doing that. And then via doing that, they empower you to donate money, donate cryptocurrency to sites that you would like to support. There is one other thing I'd like to mention about Brave, and to set up the cryptocurrency feature, it can be a little difficult. You actually have to set up windows to allow these kinds of notifications, and you have to allow it in Brave as well. And so I use this site, this benish.net site, and this will actually do it for you. This will allow you to just click a button, authorize, and that will authorize Windows and the browser to show you these alerts. But speaking of that, the other thing I wanted to mention, this is true of Brave and also of Opera, the one we're going to talk about next, is that it allows for use of what's called the IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. As a matter of fact, let's use Brave to look that up. Interplanetary, that's a hard word to spell. Interplanetary File System. It's using DuckDuckGo, a privacy-focused engine, as its search engine. That's something else with Google, is that everybody loves to default to Google as a search engine, but there are other options. I mean, Google does give good results, and DuckDuckGo is catching up. But if you're concerned about privacy, then it's just an option to consider. But anyway, here we have the Interplanetary File System. And if we scroll down here, it talks a little bit about it. You know, the thing about the IPFS is that for those of you watching who are my students, then you will know that we talked about client-server architectures and we talked about the client-server nature of the World Wide Web. And even though it is actually a distributed type of network, the fact that it's basically client-server based allows for the servers to have a lot of control and also be central points of failure. So when you visit a website, when you visit a server, the server knows everything about you. It knows the browser you're using, the operating system you're using, it knows your IP address, it logs the time, it knows a lot about you. It knows whether or not the browser you're using is full screen. There's a lot that it knows about you. Not only that, it can go down, it can be attacked, it can be shut down, or it can decide that it just doesn't want you to access it anymore. So the IPFS is attempting to distribute the web even further and to make it more decentralized. So here it says today's web is centralized. It is in a way. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's centralized and it's decentralized all at the same time. Control of the web, who has the authority to grant domain names and that kind of thing. We talked about that in class. And so these are all concerns, and they're trying to make it more distributed and make it a little more even, I guess you could say. So it supports the IPFS, as does Opera, and it also supports what are known as crypto domains. And crypto domains make it easier to send cryptocurrency back and forth. If you've ever seen a cryptocurrency address, it's a long, complicated, drawn-out thing, and the crypto domains are an attempt to, at least one aspect of them, is an attempt to make it easier to send cryptocurrency around. So that's the Brave browser, a good browser for those who are very privacy-focused. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is my daily driver. It's the one I use all the time, and I use it primarily for two reasons. It has two bits of functionality that I think are absolutely fantastic, and I just can't give them up. If I was able to, I would switch to Vivaldi, but Opera, for me anyway, wins out, and I'm going to show you why right now. Here we are with Opera. Now, this is my daily driver browser, as I've said. I love this browser primarily for a couple of main reasons. It has a speed dial built in, as you can see here. You can customize it any way that you want. It uses Google search engine up there. Come on now, right? But the features that Opera includes, I just find incredibly useful and use them all the time. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is that, like Brave, this also supports IPFS and crypto domains. So I just wanted to get that out of the way right off the bat. But here's what I love about the Opera browser, and here's one of the two features that I simply cannot live without, and it's why I stick with the Opera browser. If the other browser, specifically Vivaldi, because it has a really excellent feature that I would like to use, but I don't because I use I use Opera instead. But here it is. Here's what it is. And this is going to seem like a small thing, but it's insanely, incredibly useful. So let's read the Hamlet summary. Everybody's familiar with Hamlet, right? But just in case you're not, here's the summary. The ghost of the king of Denmark tells his son Hamlet to avenge his murder by killing the new king, Hamlet's uncle. Hamlet feigns madness. So you can just pick any word. Let's say we have feigns here. You highlight it, and it pops up this little menu, this little context menu. I love this thing. See, normally what happens is when you double click on a word in another browser, you then have to right click. You then have to either select search and click again, or select search with, navigate the thing, and click again. It's a bunch of mouse clicks to look up something. Whereas here, you just click search, and it will search using your chosen search engine for that word. The other thing is, you can just copy it to the clipboard. I use these two features, the search and the copy function, all the time. I use it constantly, multiple times every single day. And when I actually mentioned to Vivaldi that they should include something like that, their response was, oh, we already have that. All you have to do is highlight a word, right-click, and then click search. Well, this saves me having to do all that. You don't have to, you just double-click the word, and the search or copy dialog comes up. Incredibly useful. I use it constantly, both of them, all the time. But it goes further than that. So here's another issue. This is class action lawsuits against CD Projekt Red. Pecuniary. Who knows what that means? I've never heard that word before. Click on it. There it is. I just love that. That's fantastic. But as I said, it goes further than that. Look at this. This is a travel blog. I will never understand these. Why do people want to read the blogs of other people who are having a great time when you're not, and who ruin every picture that they take by putting themselves in it? Regardless, this is a good site to explain the example that I'm going to show you. Hey, there's a nice picture. You know why? Because nobody's in it. Anyway, look at this, 214 kilometers. I live in Southern California. I don't know how long a kilometer is. So can you tell me what that is in miles? Yes. Double click on it, and the conversion happens automatically. 132.97 miles. And if we convert kilometers to miles, it turns out that it's 132.97. So it's correct. It told me that accurately. That's fantastic. I find this very useful very often as well. You can click, you can copy the value to the clipboard. What about over here? Nikkei reports a Nintendo Switch price of 25. Okay, so this is back from 2017, no big deal. But here we've got dollars, we have euros, and we have dollars, euros, and pounds. And here we can't double click. It's funny with monetary signs. But if we highlight that, it will convert it automatically for us. And you'll notice this says it converts to around 214, but the value it gave us is 247. 247 is the accurate value. If you do a conversion, you will see that that's the accurate value. I just can't say enough about this feature, about this little context menu it pops up. I use that constantly. I use it all the time. I could not live without it, and that's why I stick to Opera. But let me tell you a couple of other ones. I find this to be very useful also. Here's Zach Wilde says who the best guitarist is in the two schools of guitar soloing. So let's say that I really am interested in watching this. I mean, this goes on for 51 minutes. But let's say I'm interested in watching it, but I need, I'd like to do other things as well. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but up here it's got this little thing that will pop out the video. And now you can drag the video around, you can resize it. I could move it off to one of my other monitors if I want to. I can put it somewhere else, and I can still watch it while doing other things. So I find the video, I think Firefox actually has this now as well, but it's not as fully featured as this. So I love this. I think this is an incredibly useful feature. It's one I use all the time, especially as I'm teaching from home. It's just been an incredibly useful, incredibly functional thing, and I love that. There are some other things that I wanted to show you, though. So, see, you go to other sites and it just stays right on top. I love that. I'm going to have to come back and watch this completely. So, as was the case with Edge, here is Microsoft Apple MySQL. Now, let's say that I am interested in these websites just on their own. These are my tech sites, and I want to deal with them separately than I would deal with another batch of websites. Well, Opera allows for something called workspaces. And if you look over here, on the left-hand side, you can see what looks like a home button. And the way this works is you can have multiple workspaces. So if I say manage workspaces, here I can add another one. And weirdly, they don't have a icon that looks like a computer, but I'll use the I don't know. I'll use the rocket. We'll use the rocket, and I'm going to call this workspace tech sites. All right, and then I will say create, and now we have the tech sites workspace, and you can see that the little rocket thing has appeared here. Now what I can do, if we close off of that, I can select the Microsoft tab, the Apple tab, the MySQL tab, and I do that by holding down Control. That's true in anything on Windows. You hold down Control and you can select multiple of whatever it is you're trying to select. And then, if I right-click on that, here's a menu option that says Move Tabs to Workspace Tech Sites. It closes them down, and now, if I'm interested in dealing with those tabs and looking at those, then I can switch to the other workspace, and it just shows me those tabs. So I can switch to the home space, to the tech sites space, back to workspace 1. You can rename them. You can create multiple workspaces. That's a nice feature also. So I'm a big fan of the Opera browser and the features that it has, but really the main reason is because of this and the video pop-out window. I find these so incredibly useful that I can't break away from the Opera browser. Nor do I really want to, because I do actually like it as a browser. Opera has actually been very innovative for a very long time. Just as one example, did you know that browser tabs, like you see across the top and that everybody uses all the time and are an expected feature in any browser ever, those actually originated with the Opera browser. Opera was the first browser to have tabs across the top and allow for tabbed browsing. But that will move us on to the next browser, and that's Vivaldi, that has one significant advantage that I think it's important to know. So for our last browser, we have Vivaldi. And Vivaldi has a lot of good things about it. It's the options it has are just unbelievable. Let me move them over here. Look at all the options. Look at everything that you can do. It just, even just with the themes, it gives you such an unbelievable amount of options. You wouldn't have time to figure them all out. It even works with Razor Chroma. I don't recommend that, but it's completely up to you. But it just goes on and on and on. I mean, you could, spend weeks going through all of the features and the options that Vivaldi has. But I'm going to show you the one that I really wish Opera had. I wish Opera got this, or I wish Vivaldi would adopt the pop-out video windows and the context menu that I like, because I find this feature incredibly useful. And here it is. You can tile all the tabs that you have in a single window. Watch this. So we have here 3 things that work better. I just chose a bunch of Vivaldi windows. Vivaldi browser, what's new in Vivaldi, the community, the forums, Vivaldi for Android. So you can select, again, you do it holding down the control button. You see all of those? You see that? And I'll say select and select. I'm going to do all, 6 of them? I'll do all 6 of them, but you don't have to. You could do 4 or 2 or whatever. And if we come down here, it says tile. Do you see that? Tile 6 tabs. And if you click on that, it opens them all in their individually controlled window, so you can really have them all open on the screen all at once. That is a really useful feature also, one that I would use a lot. And the other nice thing about it, as I said, is they're individually controlled. So it will open links it will open the link that you click on in that tile. And if you want to go back, then it will go back in that tile. And so each one is uniquely controlled. And I really like that. I like that a lot. You can do other things as well. So here we'll say untile selection. Let's say that you're just interested in the Community tab and the Vivaldi Forum tab, and you'd like to consider them as their own unique tabs, their own little grouping of tabs, you can say stack 2 selected tabs, and it will actually give you 2 rows of them. So you can it's like the workspaces in Opera. I prefer Opera's workspaces, but this is another version of that. And then if you right click, you can say ungroup tab stack, and it puts everything back the way it was. But I love the tiling feature of it. I find that to be incredibly useful and something that I would use a lot. So come on, Opera. Either Opera get this or Vivaldi get the context menu. So we'll take that back. And that's really the main thing that I wanted to say about the Vivaldi browser. I love that tile feature, and that makes Vivaldi my second choice. But really what I was trying to do is show you that there are options. And, I mean, I've actually had people tell me that they didn't realize there were other browsers at all other than Chrome. But there absolutely are, and there are ones that offer incredible features about usability, about navigation, about cognitive grouping, about security, about privacy. And so I would encourage you to look at those. I would encourage you to experiment with them and see, what you think of them as well. And as usual, I am happy to answer any questions that you have. And also remember that I did leave some of them out. I left out, Firefox and WaterFox and the Tor browser and so on. But I am happy to talk more about them if you would like. Other than that, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time.